Hi everybody, it's Rory Townsend here again, and I thought I would like to share with you some observation that I've made that I think might alert you to why things are happening the way they're happening now with this whole pandemic setup with the SARS-CoV-2 virus that is sort of permeating the entire globe. So there's this different sort of concepts as to what's happening, when it happened, etc. But I just want to share with you an observation that I think is important to note. I think any infection, whether it's a viral, bacterial, anything, it's not the bacteria or the virus that causes the mortality. It doesn't cause death of people just by virtue of being the virus. It's a multifactorial thing. It's your body. It's got to infect your body, how healthy your body is, your immune system, what the temperature is outside. Because if you're living in the Antarctic area, you might find it has a different effect to living near the equator because of the temperature, and the infection might have, or the bacterial virus might struggle to survive in certain temperatures. So it's multifactorial. So to say that the SARS-CoV-2 virus is direct cause of all of these deaths is a bit sort of very misleading, because I think what has been happening also is people is coming to the hospital and they in a car accident and they pass away and they get swabbed and tested and it gets promoted as being COVID-2 because they had COVID-2 when they actually passed away. And that's a bit misrepresenting of the data, not because of the political or whatever other motives there are, but just when science wants to go and use that data as a data point to work out efficacy and treatment systems, it's going to be data that's been actually corrupted. So it is what it is at the moment, and that's not where the challenge comes. I'm wanting to look at the factors around why we are having so many COVID deaths. Okay, why is it? When I say many, people might compare it to the influenza and say, no, it's nowhere near influenza or TB. That's another debate which I'm sort of open to, and I believe that it's basically like another infection. But the reason why I believe it's been promoted as much bigger than like an influenza virus is not only because the statistics are being calculated differently, because sometimes certain viruses can't occupy the body at the same time. So you might have a SARS-CoV-2 and influenza at the same time, and because the one is competing for the same receptors on the cells, the other conditions are reduced compared to, whichever one is a bit more virulent in its activity. So it's, like I said, it's multifactorial. But what I'm alerting to is the fact that we have a situation where all treatments follow a certain protocol. And it's as simple as this. I'm a qualified dental surgeon, and when I have a patient coming in with a toothache, I diagnose, I do an x-ray, I check out, there's an infection, because I want to exclude the fact that there could be maybe a carcinoma in the jaw, maybe a cancer in the jaw. So I take an x-ray, I see there's an infection. I have certain options to do. I could do intervention immediately, which is I could drill into the tooth, clear out the infection, clear out the root canal area and place in medication, get them back for a root canal later. Or maybe I want to prescribe an antibiotic first so they can have the inflammation go down so that when I do the procedure, I don't further spread any sort of bacteria in the area. So you can have different protocols, but there's an intervention. There's stuff that you use to intervene. You don't just leave the tooth and say, okay, let's leave the tooth and wait until whatever doomsday that we're going to pop you into the hospital. So all conditions have the diagnosis, and if it's infectious, you isolate, but you treat aggressively. That's the protocol. And if things all fall apart, your immune system can't deal with it with the medication, everything, and you get very sick, you then land up in hospital. With the SARS-CoV-2, the protocol that these governments and the organizations and lots of the doctors who are kind of claiming that they know all the solutions, what they're prescribing is isolation. Step one. Perfectly, I agree. And then I'm waiting for, okay, so what's the treatment protocol when the person is isolated? And they go, nothing, just isolate. your immune system will work on it. And I'm okay, understand, but there must be intervention. And they go totally crickets on it, quiet. What's the next step they promote? Is if it gets too bad and you get very sick and your respiratory system starts to collapse, which the SARS-CoV-2 virus is prevalent in the respiratory area. It's going to attack that area. When that gets bad, we send you to the hospital and we put you on a respirator. By then, that condition is so bad, you're going to have people dying. So if you are delaying the treatment, you are actually causing the likelihood of serious damage. If you recover, there will be serious damage and possibly scarring of your lungs, etc. You could have other damages in your body. Or what could happen is that you could die because you're literally treating it late. It's like having a garden where there's weeds. If you see 2 or 3 weeds and you remove the weeds, the garden's going to stay clean and healthy. But if you let the weeds grow, there's going to come a time that the weeds are going to start killing the grass and you can't remove all the weeds without damaging the grass. It's the same with your health. But we are being told that there's a 2-step regimen. It is isolate, and when you get too sick, you go to the hospital onto ventilators. I'm not even talking about this vaccine thing, because vaccines currently is basically choosing one of these, chooses messenger RNA or vector DNA to create spike proteins that literally identifies a certain area on a virus, which means that if you have been vaccinated, you can still get COVID and you can still die. You don't become immune to COVID if you had the vaccine. So let's put vaccines aside there now. My big question is, why is it when there's hundreds of thousands of doctors on the forefront treating patients, they find that there's solutions, repurposing of certain medications that's helping with keeping all the inflammation that's occurring because of these viral infections, all these cytokine storms and everything. It's keeping it at bay and reducing it and attacking the inflammation areas, etc., which is lots of where the damages come from. So they're finding these repurposed drugs. You know, it's like taking a Panado, a headache tablet, and discovering that when you take a tablet, it causes an ulcer in a mouth to heal up. You go like, okay, it happened with 1 patient. But if it happens with 1,000 patients, that they all take Panado and the ulcer in their mouth heals up. Panados may be used for headache, but it's causing that, so you could repurpose it in future. And it's a safe drug because everybody's using it for a headache. So if you don't have a headache and you have an ulcer, it's not going to do any damage, because if you had the headache, it would help the headache and the ulcer. So that's how repurposing works. So these doctors have found repurposed medications, done little sort of reports, done studies. Now they haven't done the technical double-blind studies and all that. It might be considered as anecdotal because, you know, you're taking this and that condition doesn't happen. But we are seeing more and more data points coming out on things like ivermectin, things like fluvoxamine, your vitamins that you take, etc. So these things are being used by doctors, and their patients are kept out of the hospital and they're starting to recover. Even with comorbidities, they are making it through. When they make this known, what happens, which is the ominous part, is that governments and organizations start to shut down the prescriptions or the ability to prescribe those medications. Things that have been used for 40, 50 years are now said to be very dangerous and untested and everything, while people are dying. So I'm just questioning the whole thing. Why would you prevent doctors from prescribing things that are having positive effects by the thousands? Patients are, now that are catching it, are getting onto this regimen, some doing it prophylactically, and none of these things are causing people's fatalities. It's causing them to heal. So there's enough data points on these repurposed medications that are happening. My question is this not a promotion that we isolate you? We know you're going to get sick if your immune system is not going to cope with it. You're going to get sick. And we don't want you to get healthy. We want you to go to the hospital so that we can put you on ventilators, and that becomes a commercial thing. But we ultimately want to promote the fact that the only thing to be a solution is a vaccine, which we manufacture, and we then can make our big bucks on it by just giving you a vaccine. I would still entertain the thought of a vaccine as being part of whatever solution if there was a early, strong regimen protocol of treatment of repurposed drugs, or even a drug that is made now to help to kill off the viruses, to help with the inflammation, prevent these cytokine storms, get your body healthy, like every other condition is treated. SARS-CoV-19 is the only one that middle part is being banned and prevented and said it shouldn't be used, even though the facts are showing us that thousands and hundreds of thousands of doctors and countries are benefiting from it because their patients go onto it. So for me, it looks like the agenda is we isolate you, we want you to get sick so that we can treat you on this side. We don't want anything happening in the middle. In South Africa, if you want to prescribe something like ivermectin, you've got to go through a whole justification process. It's like crazy. And I mean, ivermectin is not it's you know, you've got to look at risk versus the benefit. If you take ivermectin and it helps you to not land up in the hospital, that's benefit. What is the risk? The risk is, I don't know, whatever the side effects are there. But you're not going to die of taking ivermectin. But you could possibly die of the consequences if you do not take the ivermectin or the fluvoxamine, or get onto your vitamins as such. So the thing that I'm going to end on is the real bad part of all of this is that the people that we are listening to are prescribing isolation, hospitalization, and vaccination without considering intervention in between, which is a lifelong protocol that everybody treats every condition with going forward. You never just isolate and hospitalize. You always put this middle part. And if people can't see that this middle part has been trying to be removed by force, by legislation, for no apparent reason, except that it might be dangerous, it's untested. Untested maybe for the COVID, and if it doesn't work with, the COVID virus, then okay. Then it doesn't work for COVID virus, but it's not going to kill you. It's been used already. So ask yourself the question, why aren't you given by all these CDCs and WHOs and your governments, why aren't you given a protocol to use stuff at home? Why are doctors not seeing you and saying, okay, I'm going to prescribe this? There's a select group of doctors, but lots of the others have been like sheep. They're worried about the Delta variant and this variant and the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth wave, but they're not treating patients. They're literally saying, put a mask on, stay your social distance. And we will never be able to eradicate COVID-19, like we'll never eradicate influenza. These things are with us. And there's thousands of others that we don't even know of that our body deals with on a daily basis. So we're not interested in removing all of it. By isolating, you'll never remove it. What we're interested in is having a protocol to treat it and to get your bodies healthy, to overcome it, to have your immune system. When your immune system gets exposed to it, it will protect itself along the way. I feel, it's my personal opinion, that the reason why we're having so many deaths is because of the incorrect advice we're given about not doing intervention as far as medication and treatment goes, which is available. The advice we are getting is what's killing the people. It's not COVID. COVID is lethal, like influenza, like TB, like HIV. The virus can be lethal if not treated properly. Can you imagine if they said with HIV, when you get it, isolate yourself, and when you get so sick, we'll take you into the hospital? That would be crazy. That's why antiretrovirals are life-saving. In this case here now, we want to go, we're looking for a vaccine is the only solution. And by the way, after so many years, there's still no vaccine for HIV. So, if you're buying into the idea that there's a vaccine after a year while HIV doesn't have a vaccine, it's just because it's not popular anymore. But HIV, TB, all this stuff have intervention medications. They don't jump to vaccines. This is the only condition that they bypass any treatment and block down any treatment and villainize it, because you either isolate, you vaccinate, and hospitalize. That's the only regimen. They are leaving out this key area, and you should wake up to realize that we've been played in all this area. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense for you, and it helps you to make some more decisions. Be blessed.